Why does Xbox suck and have no games? Where the hell are the games?
As someone who just joined the Xbox ecosystem recently, I'm all too familiar with the narrative that Xbox sucks and has no games. They stand accused of under-delivering, over-promising, mismanaging studios, and even worse, trying to buy the way to success. But I'm not really interested in that from a face value perspective. I'm more interested in the details surrounding their lack of games and if their reasons and excuses hold weight. But before we start this analysis, let's lay some ground rules down. Every data point we compare Xbox to must be in direct correlation to what we expect from its rivals from a development point of view. Once we have that as a foundation, we can look at the mitigating factors and then finally determine if Microsoft is actually guilty of mismanaging studios, or have they been falsely accused by petulant fanboys from both sides, moaning, lying, whining, and crying. Let's see. In the documentary Raising Kratos, it stated God of War took around 5 years to make. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild started development in 2011 and released in 2017, giving it a 6-year cycle, or we can maybe round that off to 5 as Nintendo would likely delayed the game to release it for the Switch. Stake joined Respawn in 2014 and headed their second studio, and with Jedi Fallen Order dropping in 2019, we can deduce the game took around 4 to 5 years to make. From Software's Sekiro clocks in at around 4 years, Guerrilla Games' Horizon Zero Dawn at 7, Sony Ben's Days Gone at 6, Insomniac's Spider-Man and Naughty Dog's The Last of Us comes in at around 4 years, Final Fantasy 15 at the extreme end coming in at 10 years, and Ghost of Tsushima at 6 years. So if we take all that into consideration, the average time to develop a AAA blockbuster game during the previous gen should clock in at around 4 to 6 years, with 5 being the most reasonable. So let's apply that logic to the Xbox game studios. Sea of Thieves released in 2018 as a game with bare bones content, repetitive quests, and some technical issues in an all but empty universe. So if anyone expected them to simply jump to the next Xbox project, they would be wrong. The developers at Rare looked to fix what was wrong with the game, so they sought to make things right. Now you can say that shouldn't excuse them from making a new game within their respected time frame, but that's not how broken or live service games work. It's very rare a company releases a broken or live service game, decides to support said game, and manages to release a sequel shortly thereafter. An example of this can be found in Bungie's Destiny 2, which dropped in 2017, or Hello Games' No Man's Sky, which dropped a year before, giving these potential sequels a 6 to 7 year wait and counting. The key thing to note here is resources are limited, and these developers have either allocated the majority or all into maintaining the game. Now if you want to argue that Rare hasn't been supporting this game, then all you have to do is ask the people who actually play the game, or check the 2023 recent reviews which draw similarity to what you see in No Man's Sky. And if you don't want to take that into account, then keep in mind that Rare has released 36 updates for this game since its release. And also keep in mind that this game went from being trash on arrival to over 13 million players in 2023. So keeping the continuous live service support in perspective, is there management issues at Rare? Is Xbox guilty? Well, Everwild was announced in 2019 with the game being described as a third-person adventure with elements taken from God Games. Fortunately or unfortunately, the game lost its creative director Simon Woodruff in 2020, leading to a soft or hard reboot. But the main point here is, if it takes 4 to 6 years to make a game and you add an additional year due to COVID, is Everwild out of scope in what we would consider reasonable? And the answer is no. Because a reasonable time frame would have this game dropping in 2024 or 2025. So based on the foundation we established earlier, not guilty. Ninja Theory. Hellblade 2 was announced in 2019 with little to no details, but we did manage to get a gameplay reveal in 2021, which showed elements of combat and what to expect from the game being in motion. One thing everyone failed to realize was this was just a vertical slice as the game hadn't gone into full production yet. So it's somewhat expected the game might be a ways off, but that isn't the main talking point here. The key point here is the game's scope has seen a significant increase in relation to what its predecessor was. We know Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice used motion capture, which added to the realistic feel of the game, but we also know Ninja Theory moved into a new studio recently, which allowed the team to expand not only from a personal point of view, but technology. So expect motion capture to be an incremental part of this game when it comes to exploring its universe and talking to characters. The offset of that is, A lot of motion capture would have to be done in person, and around the same time this was happening, COVID occurred, which meant the team were probably more affected than other studios in this regard. But I also want to put it into perspective. Studios that are used to making AAA games know how to make AAA games. Going from making a AA game to AAA is going to have some growing pains. Anytime you level up, there's going to be some learning experience. So you take all that into account, what is a reasonable time frame for Hellblade 2 to drop? And that comes in at 2024 to 2026, and from what we're seeing, this could happen in 2023. So is Xbox guilty on this front? No, not on this point. Obsidian. Following the release of Pillars of Eternity: Deadfire, Microsoft purchased Obsidian, and that would mean Obsidian would be the perfect studio to jump straight into a new Xbox exclusive game. However, that wasn't the case, as the majority of Obsidian staff are working on wrapping up their OuterWorlds, a game contracted to release on various different platforms by 2019. Now, Obsidian did have other games in development around this time, such as Grounded and Pentiment, which Xbox ended up benefiting from. But truth be told, those weren't the AAA blockbuster games that would generally move the needle, as they were smaller niche titles. So for the purpose of this analysis, we discount them as the benefit is mild. And with the OuterWorlds arriving on multiple different platforms, there's no real benefit for Xbox on that front either. So we can effectively say Obsidian's Xbox journey started around 2020. And I'm right on the mark there, because in 2020, Avowed was announced. Fast forward to 2021, and OuterWorlds 2 makes an appearance. So again, if we look at the time frame of a AAA blockbuster game, Avowed and OuterWorlds 2 should drop between 2024 and 2026. You factor in COVID, that's 2025 and 2027. You consider the fact that these are next-gen games, and you push that to 2026 to 2028. But let's not go that far. Let's stick with the 4 to 6 year mark and add the COVID exception if needed. And when you think about it from that point of view, these games are understandably still a couple of years away. So is Xbox guilty of mismanaging Obsidian? Not on this point. Playground games. Fable was announced back in 2020 with a cinematic trailer and no actual gameplay. So it's safe to say the game started full development a couple of years before that, give or take. If you want to say 2019, that's fine, but Eurogamer reported that Playground Games hired around 177 people in late 2018. So I'm sticking with 2019 for full production, but late 2018 isn't a bad estimate either. So if we follow the logic, Fable has been in development for 4 to 5 years, but Playground Games has a lot of leeway here from a development point of view, and the direct comparison I'm going to evoke is Horizon Zero Dawn. Let me explain. In an interview with VentureBeat, Angie Smet talks about how Horizon Zero Dawn took 7 years to make, with other sources saying development started around 2011, which would put the game at around the 6 year mark. But in Guerrilla's defense, there's a good reason for the more than average timeline. Prior to Zero Dawn, Guerrilla Games were primarily known for developing first-person linear-like adventures, with some minor experiences in third-person games. But the key takeaway here is going from a first-person perspective to third, while creating a whole new universe, new enemy types, new combat, climbing mechanics, while also ensuring the gameplay loop, story, and art style are interesting and distinct, is going to add additional time to development. I don't believe anyone can begrudge Guerrilla Games for taking their time, and truth be told, the 6 to 7 year wait was worth it, as the Horizon franchise has now sold over 32 million units. Now let's see the direct comparisons to Playground. Playground Games is primarily known for making a specific type of game, so for a company like that to jump from making a racing simulator to a third-person open-world action-adventure game is gonna push development back somewhat. Now also keep in mind that the team is using Forza tech, so like Guerrilla with the Decima engine, they would have to adapt the engine to this new style of gameplay. They would have had to create a brand new universe, new combat mechanics, new climbing mechanics, new cities and towns that can be interacted with, new stories, side characters, RPG mechanics, motion capture, and a dialogue tree. All this in the middle of a pandemic. The conclusion here is, if it took Guerrilla Games 6 to 7 years to make Horizon Zero Dawn in these circumstances, why do we expect Playground to produce similar quality in less time? Based on the foundation we set, a reasonable release date would be 2024 to 2026. Not guilty. Compulsion Games. Microsoft acquired Compulsion Games back in 2018. Fast forward some months later, and We Happy Few releases on all platforms, bar the Nintendo Switch, which means Compulsion more than likely started development on their new IP, dubbed Project Midnight, at around 2018 or 2019. Now, because we don't know the scope of this game and when it officially started development, it's a bit hard to pinpoint when this game should launch. But what we do know is it's a third-person action-adventure story-driven game. I don't think any of us are expecting anything that's like The Last of Us or God of War, but that doesn't mean the game falls below the threshold of 4 to 6 years of development time. This will likely be Compulsion's biggest game, and I think the main focus here will be the gameplay loop, which could involve the use of magic and weapons. There's many of you out there who probably aren't excited about this game, and that's fine because We Happy Few didn't really hit. That's a subjective take. When it comes to objectivity, a 2019 starts development means we should expect this game around 2024 or 2025. Undead Labs. State of Decay 3 was announced in 2020, and what we know so far is this game is meant to be an ambitious project. In fact, if you look at Microsoft Studios, the one with the most potential from an upgrade point of view is Undead Labs. And it seems Phil and Matt understand this, as it's been confirmed the game will be using the Unreal Engine, with the Coalition providing support to ensure the game looks and feels great. But it doesn't stop there. Undead Labs has managed to pick up some great industry talent such as Jonathan Wolverston, Samman Mirza, Simon Scher, Adam Pletcher, and many others. Reports from Windows Central says the team is looking to place a larger emphasis on characters, making them feel more lifelike, with a lot of investment going into dialogue, background writing, and dynamic story events. So this is one game you don't want rushed because it has the potential to be great. But in order for that to happen, the right people need to be in place, and the right amount of time must be given, which I believe it will. So if State of Decay 2 released in 2018, we can make an argument for State of Decay 3 starting development in 2019, and if that's the case, we can expect this game to launch 4 to 6 years later, which puts it at around the 2024 to maybe 2025 region. Throwing COVID complications, that timeline changes a bit, but again, 2024 to 2025, not guilty. The Coalition. If Obsidian is Microsoft's Insomniac from a game delivery perspective, then the Coalition is Xbox's Naughty Dog. This isn't to say these comparisons are the exact same, as we know the PlayStation studios don't generally miss, but neither do the Coalition. When it comes to the use of Unreal Engine and providing quality games, these are the masters of the universe. Gears of War 5 dropped in 2019 with a great reception, and from that time till now, the Coalition has assisted in Gears Tactics and the Matrix Resurrection demo, which dropped in 2021. Now, report says multiple smaller titles have been cancelled at the studio, with them now focusing entirely on Gears of War 6. The argument you can say here is 2 cancelled titles shows lack of focus and management issues, but you would be wrong again. The fact that these games weren't even announced means you can't really critique them on that point. Furthermore, cancelling games is an aspect of management. Identifying if something isn't working, especially if there's not enough resources, is crucial. So while games being cancelled eternally isn't great, the only thing that matters is how deep in development were these games, and more importantly, how much does it affect the studio's release window. If we stick to the 4 to 6 year mark, the Coalition's next title should drop around 2023 to 2025. So on this front as well, Xbox isn't guilty. The Initiative. Established in 2018, many of you would consider the Initiative to be Xbox's first L of the video. It was initially represented as a quadruple A studio that had veterans from established franchises such as Destiny 2, Tomb Raider, The Last of Us, Anthem, Apex Legends, Uncharted, and God of War. However, it seems the studio's focus on horizontal structures caused game developments to slow down. And while this structure can favor some people and teams, it does have its cons. So a switch to a more top-down approach was put in effect, with Daniel Gallagher making all the decisions. This eventually led to a large portion of talents leaving, not because they had issues with the game, but because they had issues with the new management structure. There's no hiding behind this. Xbox takes an L here. But that's always going to happen when you're trying something new. You can't be afraid to shake up studios and make adjustments when it's otherwise needed. So as much as this is an L, it's not important in the grand scheme of things. One thing I want you to make note of is the idea that a studio leveraging Crystal Dynamics support to help them finish a game means Xbox has management issues is false. It seems the initiative was created to be small and flexible, with them providing guidance while other developers or support studios carry the bulk of the lifting. And I'm not making this up, you can see it in the staff numbers if you look it up. The initiative as of 2022 has only 56 employees, the Coalition has 200, Guerrilla Games has 360 as of 2023, Insomniac has 520, and Respawn Entertainment has 315. There's not a lot of triple or quadruple A blockbuster studios that has 50 employees. So the partnership with Crystal Dynamics or any other studio for that matter is perfectly fine. So to round this point up, everything that happened with the Coalition is more or less an L. There's no way to really spin it. But like I said, it's one that isn't important in the grand scheme of things, because at the end of the day, you can expect Perfect Dark from 2024 to maybe 2025. That's really all you care about. Games coming out at a reasonable time frame, and that's not even really considering COVID. So yeah, not guilty. InXile. In 2018, Microsoft purchased InXile, and once again, due to games in development, InXile weren't able to fully focus on the Xbox ecosystem as they dropped The Bard's Tale later that year and Wasteland 3 in 2020 on all platforms. So what do we know about their unannounced title? Not much really. We know it's a next generation RPG with a very ambitious new license, but the focus in this analysis is the date. Wasteland 3 dropped in 2020, so InXile's new project probably started around 2021 or late 2020. And if that's the case, then expect their game to release between 2024 or 2025. There isn't really much to say on this front, as this one is rather clear cut. There's no management issues here. Bethesda. This right here, you could argue, is probably Xbox's biggest L. On the back of it, purchasing Bethesda would normally net you a host of games, but Sony managed to money had their next two exclusives in Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo. If you think Microsoft were right to honor the deal, then this is another mitigating factor that actually excuses Xbox. But I'm going to disagree. At this point, it's clear you're lacking games, and especially exclusive next-gen games. As far as I'm concerned, this deal should have been broken and whatever penalty fee should have been paid. Because the truth is, Xbox not having these two titles as exclusive did some damage in the long run. Nothing too major, but in the grand scheme of releasing games from Bethesda, yes. Because even though Hi-Fi Rush was a hit, Redfall was not. You had Ghostwire Tokyo and Deathloop do Redfall, and you mitigate the narrative that Redfall ran with. The great thing here for Xbox is, Bethesda still has multiple studios to drop games such as Machine Games and Zenimax Online. It's a little bit hard to evaluate these studios because a lot of the games that they're working on was in development before Microsoft actually purchased them, and these games haven't been reviewed either, so we're gonna give it a pass for now. But what we can do is factor in Hi-Fi Rush's Game Pass shadow drop, the delay of Redfall and Starfield, which was good management, the release of Redfall, which was bad management, and the release of Starfield, which we'll see shortly. As that hasn't happened yet, we can't come to a grand conclusion, but we'll see. And then we got the honorable mentions such as Turn 10, which dropped Forza 7 in 2017, Motorsport in 2023, Double Fine with Psychonauts 2 in 2021, so expect nothing from them in the near future, and the World's Edge Studio, which has been dropping consistently. There are a few more studios on the Bethesda side I could go in on, but as these guys are probably going to announce games soon, there's no real point. But to conclude, the issue with Xbox isn't mismanaging studios. The issue was purchasing developers that were already locked into games for other publishers and platforms. This was a recurring theme, which meant some of these studios couldn't develop games for Xbox until a later date. Now Bethesda was brought in to alleviate this, and they somewhat did with Hi-Fi Rush and Starfield. But failing to lock down Ghostwire Tokyo and Deathloop hurt Xbox's perception of having games. It didn't help that the exclusive games like Stalker 2 was delayed, but that's not really on them. Now if you want to say Nintendo and Sony still managed to release games during this period, that's a fair point, but you would have to consider the fact that Xbox only had 3 studios around this time in 2013 or so. Add to the fact that they had virtually no pipeline, because at this point it seems like they were bound out of the video game space. They did a 360 and they had to start from scratch. So I understand how they ended up in this position. Most of these games are due soon. I'm talking 2023 and 2024 soon. We'll see.